On November 14th, 2024, exactly 364 days after my husband died, a plumber named Jake Morrison knocked on my office wall and said, "Ma'am, there's a room behind here that shouldn't exist." I was wrong. I said, "Show me." Then my whole world collapsed. My name is Grace Elizabeth Thompson, though I was born Ha Then Nguyen in Saigon in 1962. I came to Portland, Oregon in 1980 with $47 in my pocket and a scholarship to Portland State University. I met David Michael Thompson at a friend's wedding in 1982. He was 25, working as a medical supply salesman, and he asked me to dance even though I barely spoke English. We married on June 15, 1983. He was 26. I was 22. We had 40 years, 7 months, and 11 days together. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. David died on April 28, 2024, at 7:43 in the morning. The doctors said it was sudden cardiac arrest, a massive heart attack. He was 65 years old. They said these things happen. They said there was nothing anyone could have done. They were lying. But I didn't know that yet. The leak started in late October 2024. A slow, persistent drip behind the wall in David's home office, the room where he'd spent 30 years building our family business, Thompson Medical Supply Distribution. The room I hadn't been able to enter for 6 months after he died. Our son Brandon had been asking me to deal with it. "Mom," he'd say on his weekly check-in calls, his voice patient but insistent. "You need to get that fixed. Water damage will destroy the foundation." Brandon was 39 years old. He'd taken over the business after David passed. He lived in a penthouse downtown with his wife Rachel, a beautiful blonde woman with ice blue eyes who'd married him 5 years ago. They were always very concerned about the house. Too concerned, I would later realize. I called Morrison Plumbing on November 13th. Jake Morrison arrived the next morning at 9:15 a.m. in a white van with his company logo on the side. He was 48 years old, wore a Portland Trail Blazers cap, and had kind eyes. "Mrs. Thompson?" he said when I opened the door. "Jake Morrison. I'm here about the leak." I led him to David's office. I hadn't changed anything since he died. His coffee mug, the one that said "World's Best Dad" that Brandon gave him in 1995, still sat on the desk. His reading glasses were folded on top of a stack of industry magazines. His burgundy cardigan hung on the back of his chair. The room still smelled like him, Old Spice deodorant and mint tea. "Behind that wall," I said, pointing to the west wall beside David's bookshelf. "The leak is behind there." Jake set down his toolbox and examined the wall. He knocked on it in several places, listening. Then he frowned. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "the pipes for this room should run through the east wall, not the west. There shouldn't be any plumbing here at all." "What does that mean?" "It means we need to open up the wall to see what's going on." I nodded. "Do what you need to do." He cut into the drywall with a utility knife, then pulled away a section about 2 feet square. That's when I saw it. It wasn't a leak. It was a door. Behind the drywall was a hollow space, roughly 5 feet wide and 6 feet tall. Someone had built a false wall in front of it, sealed it up, and hidden it. And in the back corner of that hidden space, mounted into the studs, was a small digital safe. Jake Morrison turned to look at me. "Mrs. Thompson," he said quietly, "did you know this was here?" I couldn't speak. I just shook my head. He pulled away more drywall, revealing the full space. The hidden room was completely dark. The drywall on the inside had never been finished, never been painted. This wasn't some architectural oddity from when the house was built in 1987. This was recent, intentional, secret. "I'm going to step outside," Jake said. "Give you some privacy." After he left, I stood there staring at the safe for a full minute. Then I stepped into the hidden space. It was cold, dusty. The floor showed faint shoe prints. Someone had been in here before, recently. The safe had a digital keypad, 4 digits. My hands were shaking as I entered 0615. June 15th, our anniversary. The lock clicked open. Inside were 3 things. 1. A small black USB drive. 2. A leather-bound journal I recognized as David's, the one he'd always kept in his desk drawer. 3. A stack of 4 manila folders, each labeled in David's careful handwriting. The folders were labeled Brandon Michael Thompson, our son, Rachel Ann Cunningham, our daughter-in-law. Doctor. Patricia Louise Hughes, our family doctor for 15 years. William Charles Foster, David's best friend of 35 years. I pulled everything out with trembling hands and carried it to David's desk. Then I opened the journal. The first page was dated March 8th, 2023, 18 months before David died. In his handwriting it said, "Grace, my love, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And it wasn't natural causes. They poisoned me. I don't know how much time I have left, but I need you to know the truth. Everything is in here. All the evidence is in safety deposit box number 4721 at Wells Fargo on Burnside. Trust no one except Catherine Bennett. She's the only one who knows. I love you. I will always love you. Please forgive me for not telling you sooner. I was trying to protect you." The journal fell from my hands. I sat down in David's chair, the leather chair where he'd sat every evening, going over invoices and purchase orders, and I couldn't breathe. Outside, I could hear Jake Morrison loading tools back into his truck. Normal sounds. A normal Thursday morning in Lake Oswego, Oregon. But nothing would ever be normal again. I picked up the USB drive with shaking hands and plugged it into David's computer, the desktop he'd used for work, still sitting on the desk exactly where he'd left it. One audio file appeared on the screen. Grace_final_message.mp3. I clicked play. Static. Then David's voice, weak, raspy, nothing like the strong voice I remembered. "Grace, if you're hearing this, I've run out of time." I pressed my hand over my mouth. Tears blurred my vision. "I need you to listen carefully. This will be hard to hear, but you need to know I was poisoned. It wasn't a heart attack. The symptoms, hair loss, nausea, confusion, tremors, they're consistent with thallium poisoning. Dr. Hughes was giving me contaminated vitamins. She was being blackmailed by William." My breath caught. William Foster, David's best friend since 1989. The man who'd stood beside David at our wedding, who'd been Brandon's godfather, who'd helped us start the business. "William never forgave me for marrying you, Grace. I didn't realize it until it was too late. He introduced Dr. Hughes to us 15 years ago. She owed him money, gambling debts, $230,000. He paid them off in exchange for this. He also loaned Brandon money when Brandon got desperate, $1.2 million. Brandon couldn't pay it back. William owns him now." David's voice broke. "And Rachel? Grace, Rachel isn't who she claims to be. Her real name is Rebecca Cole. She's been married twice before. Both husbands died in accidents. Both had large life insurance policies. William found her. William introduced her to Brandon. This has been planned for years." A long pause. I could hear David breathing, struggling. "I've left evidence with Catherine Bennett. She has instructions. If anything happens to me, she'll open a sealed file in April 2025, 1 year from now. But Grace, I don't think I'll make it that long. I'm getting weaker. The vitamins. I stopped taking them, but the damage is done." Another pause. "I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to protect you. But now I'm afraid they're planning to come after you next." Brandon mentioned something about conservatorship on a phone call I overheard. They want to declare you mentally incompetent. They want control of everything. His voice turned urgent. "Don't trust Brandon. Don't trust Rachel. Don't trust William. And whatever you do, don't take any vitamins Dr. Hughes prescribes. Grace, my love, I'm so sorry. Please protect yourself. Please stay safe. Please live. I love you more than anything in this world." The recording ended. I sat in complete silence. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Outside, a bird was singing. Somewhere down the street, someone was mowing their lawn. My husband had been murdered. My son had helped kill him. And they were planning to kill me next. I looked at the 4 manila folders sitting on the desk. Then I opened the one labeled Brandon Michael Thompson. I read David's journal for 4 hours straight. By the time I finished, the autumn sun had moved across the sky and the office was filled with long shadows. This is what I learned. January 12th, 2023. I've been reviewing the company books. Something's wrong. There are transfers I don't recognize. Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts. $1,500 here, $3,200 there. Always under $10,000 to avoid automatic reporting. I ran the numbers. In the past 18 months, $187,000 is missing. January 19, 2023, I checked the account signatures. Brandon. All of them were authorized by Brandon. My son is stealing from me. From us. From the company we built together. February 2nd, 2023, I hired a private investigator. Jacob Riley, former Portland PD. I need to know what Brandon is doing with the money before I confront him. Grace can't know yet. It would destroy her. February 23rd, 2023, Jacob's report. Brandon lost $890,000 in cryptocurrency investments between June 2021 and November 2022. He used company funds to cover the losses. Then he started borrowing from loan sharks. That's when William stepped in. March 8th, 2023. William loaned Brandon $1.2 million at 18% annual interest. The contract is brutal. If Brandon defaults, William gets equity in Thompson Medical Supply. My own best friend is circling my son like a vulture. But why? March 15th, 2023. I've been thinking about William, about the past. Grace doesn't know this. I never told her, but William was in love with her first. They worked together in Seattle in 1981 before I met her. He was planning to ask her to marry him. Then she came to that wedding in Portland. She met me, and she chose me. He left Seattle 6 months later. I thought he'd moved on. March 29th, 2023. Jacob investigated Rachel. Her real name is Rebecca Marie Cole. Born 1989 in Phoenix, Arizona. Married 3 times. Thomas Reed, 2008 to 2009. Died in car accident. Life insurance payout, $250,000. Mark Winters, 2011 to 2013. Died in hiking accident. Life insurance payout, $500,000. Stephen Hartley, 2015 to 2017. Died in house fire. Life insurance payout, $750,000. She collects husbands like trophies. And now she's married to our son. April 12th, 2023. I confronted Brandon today. He broke down, said he was ashamed, said Rachel told him she could fix everything if he trusted her, said William promised to forgive the debt if Brandon helped with the family business transition. I asked what that meant. Brandon wouldn't answer. I saw fear in his eyes. June 7th, 2023. William called me, asked if I'd thought about succession planning, said at 64 I should be thinking about retirement, said Brandon was ready to take over, said he'd like to increase his investment in the company, buy up to 40% equity. I told him no. He smiled and said, "Think about it, David. Think about Grace. She deserves security in her old age." My hands tightened on the journal. That smile. I remembered William's smile. Charming, warm, with a hint of something I'd never been able to name. September 3, 2023. I've been feeling unwell, exhausted, nausea. Dr. Hughes ran tests. Everything came back normal. She said it's probably stress. She prescribed vitamin supplements, a custom compound from a pharmacy she recommends. I started taking them 3 days ago. September 28th, 2023. The vitamins aren't helping. I'm worse. My hands shake. My hair is falling out. Grace noticed. I told her it's just age, but I'm frightened. I'm only 64. October 15th, 2023. I stopped taking the vitamins. I sent one of the pills to a private lab for analysis. Jacob helped me arrange it. Results in 2 weeks. October 29th, 2023. The lab results came back. Thallium sulfate, a metallic poison used in industrial rodent control. In the doses I was taking, it causes slow poisoning that mimics natural illness. Hair loss, nausea, tremors, confusion. Eventually, heart failure. The lab tech said with the concentration in these pills, I probably have 4 to 6 months before organ failure. November 3rd, 2023, I confronted Dr. Hughes. I recorded the conversation, copy on USB drive. She cried, said William forced her, said she owed him $230,000 from gambling debts at an illegal casino in Vancouver, said he paid off the debt in 2008, the year before she became our family doctor. 15 years. She's been owned by him for 15 years, waiting for him to call in the favor. November 11th, 2023. I haven't taken the vitamins in 3 weeks. I feel slightly better. But Jacob says the damage is cumulative. Even if I stop now, the thallium is in my bones, my organs. He urged me to go to the police. I can't. Not yet. If William realizes I know, he'll escalate. And Grace? They'll come for Grace next. December 1st, 2023. I met with Catherine Bennett, estate lawyer. She was Grace's roommate at Portland State, one of her oldest friends. I'm establishing a protective trust. Everything goes to Grace. The house, the business shares, the investments. Brandon gets nothing until he's free of William's influence. I'm also creating a sealed file with all the evidence. Catherine will open it in April 2025, 1 year after my projected death. That gives Grace time to grieve before she has to fight. January 8th, 2024. Brandon mentioned conservatorship on a phone call I overheard. He was talking to Theodore Grant, a lawyer William recommended. They're planning to declare Grace mentally incompetent after I'm gone. She's 61 years old, sharp as ever, but they'll claim she's too old, too fragile, too foreign to manage finances. They'll take everything. February 14th, 2024, Valentine's Day. I bought Grace orchids today. White ones, her favorite. We had dinner at Higgins. She wore the blue dress I love. She smiled at me the way she did 40 years ago. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to warn her. But I can't bear to ruin the time we have left. I'm being a coward. God forgive me. March 5th, 2024. I'm getting worse. The tremors are constant now. I can barely hold a pen. Grace is so worried. She wants me to see a specialist. I'm stalling. If I go to a hospital, they'll do tests. They'll find the thallium. The police will get involved. William will know. And Grace? I need more time to protect Grace. March 19th, 2024. I confronted William today, told him I knew everything. He didn't even try to deny it. He smiled, that same charming smile, and said, "You stole 40 years of my life, David. You took the woman I loved. You built a life that should have been mine. So yes, I'm taking it back, year by year, piece by piece. And when you're gone, I'll make sure Grace knows it was all your fault for not being good enough for her." I asked him why he waited so long. He said, "Patience, David. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and I've had 40 years to perfect this recipe." April 10th, 2024, 2 days before David died. This is probably my last entry. I can barely write. The pain is constant now. My heart is failing. I know I don't have much time. I've recorded everything for Grace. I've hidden the evidence in the wall safe. The combination is our anniversary. She'll figure it out. Catherine has the rest. Grace, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't strong enough to protect you while I was alive. But I've left you weapons. Use them. Fight them. Don't let William win. Don't let them take what we built. Live, my love. Please live. You are stronger than you know. I love you. Forever and always. Your David. The final words were barely legible. His hand must have been shaking so badly he could hardly hold the pen. I closed the journal and pressed it against my chest. I sat in David's chair and I cried. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I didn't know existed. My husband had died slowly, knowing he was being murdered, unable to stop it. And he'd done it to protect me. Outside, the sun was setting. The office was nearly dark. But I didn't turn on the light. I just sat there, holding David's journal, and I made a decision. They thought I was weak. They thought I was just an old woman, a grieving widow who'd never worked, who didn't understand business, who would be easy to manipulate. They were wrong. I would finish what David started. I would gather every piece of evidence. I would expose every lie, and I would make them pay for what they'd done. Not with violence, not with revenge, with justice. I didn't call the police, not yet. David had taught me something in 40 years of marriage. Don't act until you understand the full picture. Move too soon, and your enemy goes to ground. Wait, watch, plan. I had weapons now. David's journal, the recording, 4 folders full of evidence. But William Foster was smart, patient, and ruthless. If I showed my hand too early, he'd bury the evidence and destroy me in court. I needed more. I needed ironclad proof. I needed professionals. On November 15th, 2024, the day after I found the hidden safe, I made 2 phone calls. Call number 1, Catherine Bennett, Attorney at law, Catherine answered on the second ring. Grace, is everything all right? Catherine was 60 years old, Vietnamese American like me, with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. We'd been roommates at Portland State in 1980, back when we were both struggling immigrant girls trying to make it in America. She'd become one of Portland's top estate lawyers. David had trusted her completely. Catherine, I said quietly. I found David's journal. Silence, then, come to my office now. Don't tell anyone you're coming. Call number 2, Jacob Riley, private investigator. The number was in David's contacts. A man answered, gravelly voice, professional. Riley Investigations. Mr. Riley, my name is Grace Thompson. My husband David hired you in 2023. A pause. Mrs. Thompson, I've been waiting for your call. How much do you know? Everything. I have the journal. Then we need to meet. Are you somewhere safe? I'm at home. Stay there. Lock the doors. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I did as he said. I locked every door, every window. Then I sat in the living room and waited. Catherine's office was in a high-rise on Southwest Broadway, 17th floor, with a view of Mount Hood on clear days. Today was gray and drizzly, classic Portland November. She was waiting for me. When I walked in, she stood and pulled me into a hug. Grace, I'm so sorry. We sat in her conference room. I gave her the journal, the folders, and the USB drive. She spent 45 minutes reading, taking notes, her face getting harder with each page. Finally, she looked up. David came to see me on December 1st, 2023. He set up a protective trust. Everything goes to you. Brandon is completely cut out until certain conditions are met. What conditions? Full repayment of the embezzled funds, proof he's cut ties with William Foster, and... She paused. David required Brandon to complete a year of therapy and pass a psychological evaluation confirming he's no longer under Rachel's influence. Did David think Brandon could be saved? Catherine's expression softened. He hoped. David loved Brandon, but he loved you more, and he knew you needed protection. She pulled out a thick file from her desk drawer. This is the sealed file David left with me. I wasn't supposed to open it until April 28th, 2025, 1 year after his death. But given what you've found, I think we need to open it now. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, property deeds, and photographs. I spread them across the conference table. Evidence item number 1, Brandon's embezzlement asterisk. Total stolen, $1,947,832. 19 asterisk period. January 2021 to March 2024 asterisk. Method, 387 separate transfers under $10,000. Each asterisk. Destination cryptocurrency accounts, offshore holdings. Evidence item number 2, William Foster's loan contract asterisk. Amount $1,200,000 asterisk. Interest, 18% annually asterisk. Collateral, if Brandon defaults, William receives 45% equity in Thompson Medical Supply asterisk. Date signed March 2nd, 2023 asterisk. Witness, Theodore Grant. Attorney evidence item number 3, Rachel's background. Birth name, Rebecca Marie Cole. SSN, redacted in David's file. Previous marriages, Thomas Reed, married 2008, died 2009. Car accident, $250,000 payout. Mark Winters, married 2011, died 2013. Hiking fall, $500,000 payout. Stephen Hartley, married 2015, died 2017. House fire, $750,000 payout. Total insurance collected, $1,500,000. Current insurance on Brandon, $2 million, taken out April 2020. Evidence item number 4, Dr. Patricia Hughes. Gambling debts to Vancouver Casino, $227,450, 2008. Paid off by William Foster Enterprises, LLC, October 2008. Became Thompson Family Doctor, January 2009. Prescriptions for David, custom vitamin compound from Holistic Wellness Pharmacy, owned by shell company traced to William Foster. Catherine watched me absorb it all. Grace, this is attempted murder, financial fraud, elder abuse. You need to go to the FBI. Not yet, I said. William is too well connected. These documents might not hold up in court. They could claim David was paranoid, mentally ill, that his suspicions weren't proof. I need them to incriminate themselves. I need them to confess. Catherine leaned back. What do you have in mind? Jacob Riley arrived at my house at 2:47 p.m. He was 48 years old, black, with close-cropped hair and the alert posture of someone who'd spent 20 years in law enforcement. He carried a laptop case and a metal briefcase. "Mrs. Thompson," he said when I opened the door. "I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." We sat in the living room. He opened the laptop and pulled up files, surveillance photos, financial records, recorded conversations. "Your husband paid me a $50,000 retainer in February 2023, Jacob said. He asked me to investigate 3 people, Brandon Thompson, Rachel Cunningham, and William Foster. I've been working the case for 20 months. Here's what I found." He showed me everything. Surveillance on Brandon. Meetings with William Foster. 37 documented instances between March 2023 and April 2024. Locations: expensive restaurants, William's office, a private club on Salmon Street. Conversations, captured via directional mic. Discussion of removing obstacles. Timeline. Conservatorship petition. Surveillance on Rachel. Real identity confirmed through fingerprints. Jacob had connections. Additional discovery. Rebecca Cole was investigated for the death of Thomas Reed in 2009. Police suspected foul play but couldn't prove it. Rachel met with Theodore Grant, lawyer, 14 times in 2024 topic discussed. Petition to declare Grace Thompson incompetent due to advanced age and cultural barriers to understanding American finance. Surveillance on William Foster. Owns 17 shell companies. Net worth, estimated $42 million. 3 visits to David and Grace's house in April 2024, week before David died. 1 visit, April 26, 2024, 6:30 a.m., 2 days before David's death. William entered the house using a key. Where did he get a key? Duration inside, 14 minutes. David was found dead 48 hours later. "Jacob," I said slowly, "are you telling me William was in our house 2 days before David died?" "Yes, ma'am, and I have time-stamped photographs." He showed me. William Foster in a dark coat entering my house at dawn. The same house where David was alone, sick, dying. "Did he—" "I can't prove what he did inside," Jacob said carefully. "But Mrs. Thompson, if he administered a final dose of poison or tampered with David's medication, this would have been the opportunity." I felt sick. Jacob continued. "There's more. I found the conservatorship petition that Theodore Grant prepared for Brandon. It hasn't been filed yet. They're waiting. The petition claims you're mentally declining due to age, trauma from husband's death, and inability to understand complex financial matters due to English being your second language." Rage flared in my chest. I'd lived in America for 44 years. I had a college degree. I'd helped build a multi-million-dollar business. And they were going to claim I was too foreign to manage money? "When are they planning to file it?" I asked. According to Theodore's calendar, which I may have accessed through less than legal means, the petition is scheduled for December 15th, 2024, 1 month from now. 1 month. They were giving me 1 month to grieve before they took everything. "Jacob," I said, "I need you to keep watching them. I need to know every move they make." "Already on it, Mrs. Thompson. I've installed monitoring on Brandon's phone. He has no idea. I'm tracking his communications with Rachel, William, and Theodore. The moment they make a move, you'll know." "What's this going to cost?" Jacob smiled slightly. "Your husband prepaid for a full year. We're covered through February 2025. After that," he paused. "Mrs. Thompson, I liked David. He was a good man. And what they did to him. I'll work this case for free if I have to." After he left, I sat alone in my living room. In my hands, I held David's journal, Catherine's legal files, and Jacob's investigation reports. I had everything I needed to destroy them. But I needed one more thing. I needed them to think they'd already won. On November 18th, 2024, 4 days after discovering the truth, I called Brandon. "Mom!" His voice was warm, relieved. "I've been worried about you. You haven't returned my calls." "I'm sorry, sweetheart," I said, injecting my voice with the trembling hesitation of a confused old woman. I've been having trouble remembering to check my phone. Sometimes I forget where I put it." A pause. I could almost hear his mind working. Mom, that's concerning. Have you been feeling okay? Maybe we should get you checked out. Perfect. He'd taken the bait. I'm just tired, Brandon. Getting old, I suppose. Everything feels so difficult since your father. I let my voice break. I know, Mom. I know. Listen, why don't Rachel and I come over for dinner this week? We can spend some time together. That would be lovely. How about Thursday? I'll bring wine. Rachel will cook. Wonderful. I'll see you at 6:30. After I hung up, I sat very still. Then I went to my bathroom and practiced in the mirror. I practiced looking confused, looking forgetful, looking like a grieving old woman who couldn't quite manage on her own. If they wanted to see me as weak, I would show them weakness. If they wanted to believe I was declining, I would decline. I would give them exactly what they expected, and then I would destroy them. Thursday, November 21st, 2024, 6:30 p.m., Brandon and Rachel arrived precisely on time. Brandon was wearing an expensive suit, too expensive for someone whose salary from Thompson Medical Supply was $120,000 per year. Rachel wore a cream-colored cashmere dress and carried a bottle of wine that probably cost $200. They looked like success, like people who'd already won. Mom! Brandon hugged me. I let myself seem frail in his arms, smaller than I really was. Rachel kissed my cheek. Her perfume was Chanel No. 5. Grace, you look tired. Are you sleeping okay? Oh, you know, I said vaguely. Some nights are harder than others. Sometimes I wake up and forget. Forget that David isn't. Of course, Rachel said smoothly, guiding me to the couch. Grief is so difficult, especially at your age. At my age, I was 62. She was 35. I wanted to slap her. Instead, I smiled weakly and sat down. Brandon poured wine. I accepted a glass and took a small sip, then deliberately set it down on the coffee table, missing the coaster. Rachel's eyes flicked to the wet ring forming on the wood. Brandon and I had refinished that table together when he was 16. He would have noticed, but he said nothing. During dinner, I played my role perfectly. I told the same story twice, about the neighbor's cat getting into the garage. I forgot the name of the restaurant David and I went to for our 35th anniversary. It was Higgins, I remembered perfectly. I asked Brandon about the business in vague, disinterested terms, as if I'd never helped build it. Actually, Mom, Brandon said carefully, that's something we wanted to talk to you about. The business. Thompson Medical Supply. Oh? I blinked at him. Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. It's a lot to manage. And with Dad gone, I'm doing it all myself. We were thinking, Rachel interjected, that maybe it's time to simplify things, so you don't have to worry about all those complicated financial matters. Simplify? Well, Brandon said, not meeting my eyes, Dad left you as the majority shareholder, 65% of the company. But Mom, you've never really been involved in the day-to-day operations. And honestly, with everything you're dealing with, grief, memory issues, it might be better if we transferred your shares to someone who can actively manage the business. Someone like you? I asked quietly. Yes. I'm already running it. This would just make it official. We'd set up a very generous monthly stipend for you, of course. You'd never have to worry about money. You could just relax. Enjoy your retirement. I looked down at my hands, let my shoulders slump. I don't know, Brandon. Your father worked so hard to build that company. He wanted me to have security. And you will, Rachel said brightly. This is security. You won't have to manage anything or make any difficult decisions. We'll take care of everything. I need to think about it, I said. Brandon and Rachel exchanged a glance. I saw the frustration in Rachel's eyes quickly masked. Of course, Mom, Brandon said. Take all the time you need. But maybe we should also talk about the house. The house? It's a lot for you to maintain alone. 4 bedrooms, the yard, all those stairs. What if you fell? There are some really nice assisted living facilities in Portland. Very upscale. You'd have your own apartment, but there'd be people around to help you, to make sure you're eating, to... You want me to sell this house? My voice came out sharper than I'd intended. Rachel put her hand on mine. Her fingers were cold. We want you to be safe, Grace, that's all. I pulled my hand away, stood up. I think I'm very tired. Maybe you should go. Mom, please go. They left. But as I watched them drive away, I saw Rachel pull out her phone. She was texting someone. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Thompson, this is Theodore Grant. I'm an attorney who works with your son. He's expressed some concerns about your well-being. I'd like to schedule a consultation to discuss options for your care and estate planning. Please call me at your earliest convenience. They were already moving, faster than I'd expected. I texted back. Thank you, I'll call next week. Then I called Jacob Riley. They're escalating, I told him. Brandon tried to get me to transfer company shares tonight, and a lawyer just contacted me about care and estate planning. Theodore Grant? Yes. Mrs. Thompson, I need to tell you something. I accessed Theodore's email server today. Don't ask how. He sent a draft conservatorship petition to Brandon at 4:15 this afternoon, 3 hours before they came to your house. What does that mean? It means they already had the petition ready. Tonight's dinner was a test. They wanted to see if you'd voluntarily give up control. When you didn't, they moved to Plan B, legal force. My hands clenched. How long do I have? The draft petition is dated December 2nd, 2024, 11 days from now. Once they file, you'll have to appear before a judge. They'll present evidence of your incompetence, the memory issues you showed tonight, your inability to manage finances, maybe even fake medical reports from Dr. Hughes. If the judge believes them, you'll lose control of everything. Can they actually win? Jacob was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Thompson, I won't lie to you. You're a 62-year-old immigrant woman whose husband just died. Theodore Grant is a skilled lawyer who specializes in elder law. Dr. Hughes will testify that you're declining. Brandon will testify that you're confused. Rachel will cry on the stand about how worried she is. And the judge might believe them. So what do I do? We need to move first. We need to expose them before they can file that petition. How? I have an idea, Jacob said. But Mrs. Thompson, it's going to require you to do something very difficult. What? You're going to have to sit across a table from William Foster and make him think he's won. On November 23, 2024, I did something that terrified me. I called William Foster. Grace. His voice was warm, concerned, the voice of a family friend, the voice of a murderer. I've been so worried about you. How are you holding up? William, I let my voice shake. I need to talk to someone who knew David, someone who understands. Could we meet for coffee? A pause. I could almost hear him calculating, wondering if this was a trap. Then, of course, Grace, of course. Where would you like to meet? Do you remember Waterfront Park, where the cherry trees are? David and I used to walk there. I remember. How about tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock? That would be perfect. After I hung up, I called Jacob Riley. I'm meeting William tomorrow. Waterfront Park, 10 a.m. Mrs. Thompson, I don't think that's safe. I'll be in public. Witnesses everywhere. And Jacob, I need you to be there, hidden, recording everything. What are you planning? I'm going to make him tell me why. November 24th, 2024, Waterfront Park, 9:45 a.m. I arrived early. The park was beautiful in late November, the cherry trees bare, the Willamette River dark and swift beside the walking path. Joggers passed by. A mother pushed a stroller. Normal people living normal lives. I sat on the bench where David and I used to sit, the bench where we'd discussed expanding the business in 1995, where we'd celebrated Brandon's acceptance to University of Oregon in 2003, where we'd grieved together when my mother died in 2010. So many memories. And William had been there for all of them, watching from the shadows, waiting. At exactly 10 a.m., William appeared. He was 67 years old but looked younger. Silver hair perfectly styled, expensive wool coat, leather gloves. He looked like success, like power, like a man who'd won. Grace. He sat down beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Tom Ford, the same cologne he'd worn for 40 years. Thank you for calling. I've been worried. Have you? Of course. Your family. David was my best friend for 35 years. And you? He looked at me with those piercing blue eyes. You've always been special to me, Grace. You know that. I did know that. I'd always known that William looked at me differently than other men did. I'd thought it was just admiration, respect. I'd been so naive. William, I said quietly, how long have you been in love with me? He went very still. Then slowly he smiled. Is that what you wanted to talk about? I found David's journal. The smile didn't waver. Did you now? He knew, William. He knew everything. The poison, Dr. Hughes, the loan to Brandon, Rachel, all of it. William leaned back against the bench, utterly relaxed. Well then, I suppose we can stop pretending. Why? My voice broke. Why did you kill him? He was your friend. He trusted you. Your friend. William's voice turned cold. He was never my friend, Grace. He was the man who stole you. Stole me? William, I was never yours to steal. Weren't you? He turned to face me fully. Seattle, 1981. We worked together at Pacific Medical Supply. You'd been in America for 1 year. You barely spoke English. You were lost, scared, brilliant. I helped you. I taught you the business. I fell in love with you. I didn't know. I was going to propose. Did you know that? June 1982. I had the ring, planned the whole thing. And then your friend invited you to a wedding in Portland. You met David Thompson, a nobody salesman with no ambition, no vision, no fire. And you chose him. The bitterness in his voice was terrifying. David was kind, I said. He was gentle. He loved me for who I was, not for who he wanted me to be. He was boring. William's voice rose. He was ordinary. And you deserved extraordinary. You deserved someone who would build an empire for you, who would give you everything, who would obsess over me for 40 years. I stood up. That's not love, William. That's sickness. He stood too, towering over me. Do you know what it was like? Watching you two? Christmas dinners, birthday parties, anniversaries. Watching him touch you, make you laugh, grow old with you. Knowing it should have been me. So you left. You went to San Francisco. I tried to move on. His voice was raw now. I built a company, made millions, married twice, both failures because every woman I met I compared to you. And they all fell short. So in 1995 I came back. I told myself I could be near you, be David's friend, and that would be enough. But it wasn't. No. His eyes were fever bright. Every year was torture. Watching you age, knowing David had stolen the best years of your life. And then I realized, why should he get those years? Why should he die peacefully in his sleep at 85, having had everything? So I decided to take it back. Year by year, day by day. My blood ran cold. When did you start planning? William smiled, a terrible, triumphant smile. 2014, 10 years ago. William pulled out his phone, showed me a photograph. Recognize her? It was Rachel, but younger, maybe 28 years old, sitting across from William in a restaurant. I found Rebecca Cole in 2014, William said calmly. She was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep in Phoenix. I did my research. 3 dead husbands, $1.5 million in insurance payouts. Never caught, never even suspected. She was perfect. Perfect for what? For destroying your family from the inside. He swiped to another photo, Rachel and Brandon at a charity gala in 2015. I arranged their first meeting, told Rebecca that Brandon Thompson was the heir to a multi-million-dollar medical supply company. Young, weak, desperate for approval. She married him in 2019, right on schedule. And then? 2017. I engineered Brandon's cryptocurrency losses. Easy to do when you own the investment firm he was using. He lost $890,000 in 6 months. Came to me desperate, drowning in debt. I loaned him $1.2 million at 18% interest with a contract that gave me equity in Thompson Medical Supply if he defaulted. He had no choice. William was pacing now, energized by his own brilliance. 2018, I paid off Dr. Hughes's gambling debts, $227,450. In exchange, she became my employee, waiting for instructions. 2022, I increased my investment in David's company, bought up shares from retiring board members. By 2023, I owned 35% of Thompson Medical Supply. Combined with the equity I'd get when Brandon defaulted, I'd control 80%. 2023, I activated Dr. Hughes, started poisoning David through his custom vitamins. Slow, untraceable, designed to look like natural aging and stress. He showed me another document on his phone. A timeline, a goddamn timeline of my husband's murder. William Foster's 10-year plan. 2014. Recruit Rachel, Rebecca Cole. 2015. Introduce Rachel to Brandon. 2017. Engineer Brandon's financial collapse. 2018. Control Dr. Hughes through debt. 2019. Rachel marries Brandon. 2022. Increase Thompson, medical supply ownership to 35%. 2023. Begin poisoning David, January to April, thallium sulfate via vitamins. 2024. David dies, April 28th. 2024 to 2025. Phase 2. Isolate Grace. Have Brandon/Rachel convince Grace to transfer company shares. If she resists, file conservatorship petition, December 2024. Have Dr. Hughes testify to Grace's declining mental state. Appoint Brandon as conservator equals William controls assets. Within 6 to 12 months, Grace dies naturally, vitamin poisoning or accident. Brandon inherits everything but is drowning in debt to William. Rachel divorces Brandon, collects $2 million life insurance when Brandon tragically dies. William owns 100% of Thompson Medical Supply, plus David and Grace's house, plus all assets. Total value, $8.7 million. I stared at the screen. He'd planned my death, written it down like a business proposal. "You're insane," I whispered. "I'm patient," William corrected. "There's a difference. And Grace, here's the beautiful part. It's too late to stop it. Even if you go to the police with David's journal, what do you have? Unproven accusations from a dead man. My lawyers will say David was paranoid, mentally ill from the stress of running a business. Dr. Hughes will testify that he showed signs of dementia. Brandon will cry and say his father was not himself in his final months. I have the thallium test results. From a private lab David hired? Without proper chain of custody? Inadmissible. And even if you could prove David was poisoned, you can't prove I did it. Dr. Hughes prescribed the vitamins. She'll take the fall. She's already prepared to claim she was tricked by a pharmacist. I'm insulated, Grace. Completely protected. What about Rebecca? 3 dead husbands. All ruled accidental. No evidence, no witnesses. She's too good to get caught. I felt despair rising. So you just win? William stepped closer, put his hand on my cheek. I forced myself not to flinch. I wanted you to know, he said softly. I needed you to understand. David took 40 years from me, so I took everything from him. His health, his son, his company, his dignity, and soon his wife. That's justice, Grace. That's balance. That's evil. No. His eyes were cold. Evil is making someone love you for 40 years knowing you settled. David knew he wasn't good enough for you. He lived every day knowing I was smarter, richer, better, and it killed him. If not literally, then spiritually. I just accelerated the process. He pulled his hand away. You have 2 choices now. 1. Transfer your company shares to Brandon voluntarily. Sign the papers Theodore Grant has prepared. Move into a nice assisted living facility. Live out your remaining years in comfort. I'll make sure you're taken care of. Or we go through the conservatorship hearing. I'll drag your name through court. We'll present evidence that you're mentally incompetent. The memory lapses Brandon documented at dinner, the confusion Rachel has witnessed, Dr. Hughes's medical testimony. We'll argue that as a non-native English speaker with no business experience, you're incapable of managing complex finances. And Grace will win. You're a 62-year-old immigrant widow. The optics aren't in your favor. And then you'll kill me. Then you'll live peacefully until natural causes take you. 6 months, maybe a year. He smiled. Thallium is very gentle in low doses. You'll just fade away, like David did. I looked at him. This man I'd known for 35 years. This man who'd held Brandon at his baptism. Who'd toasted at our anniversary parties. Who'd stood beside David's casket and delivered a eulogy about friendship. William, I said quietly, do you really think I came here without a plan? His smile faltered. What? I pulled a small device from my coat pocket. Held it up. Recording device. Everything you just said about finding Rachel, poisoning David, planning my death, it's all recorded. And Jacob Riley has been sitting on that bench 50 feet away with a directional microphone and a camera capturing this entire conversation. William's face went white. He spun around. Jacob was indeed sitting on the bench, raising his hand in a small wave. Oh, and William? I stepped closer. I'm not a helpless old woman. I'm the daughter of Nguyen Van Tan, who survived the fall of Saigon. I'm the immigrant who came to America with $47 and built a life. I'm the wife who watched my husband die knowing he was murdered. And I'm the woman who's going to destroy you. That recording won't hold up in court. Oregon is a two-party consent state. I didn't consent to being recorded. You're right, but I'm not going to the police, William. Not yet. Then what? I'm going to give you the same thing you gave David. Time to suffer. Time to know what's coming and be unable to stop it. And when I'm ready, when I have every piece of evidence, every witness, every document, I'm going to take everything from you. Your company, your reputation, your freedom. And you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, knowing you lost to the woman you underestimated. I walked away. Behind me, I heard William shout, "You can't prove anything! Grace, you can't win this!" I didn't look back. Jacob drove me home. We didn't speak until we were safely inside my house with the doors locked and the recording equipment set up on my dining room table. That was the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed, Jacob said. And I worked homicide for 15 years. Did you get everything? Audio, video, backup recording on my phone. We have his full confession. He paused. But Mrs. Thompson, he's right. This recording isn't admissible in Oregon court without his consent. I know, but it gives us leverage, and it tells us exactly what his plan is. I pulled out my phone and called Catherine Bennett. Catherine, I need to see you, today, and I need to file some paperwork. Catherine listened to the entire recording. When it finished, she sat back in her chair, face pale. Grace, this is one of the most calculated murders I've ever seen, and I practiced criminal law for 10 years before I switched to estate planning. Can we use it? Not directly in court, but we can use it to build our strategy. She opened her laptop. Here's what we're going to do. We're filing 3 things today. 1. Emergency protective order against Theodore Grant, blocking him from filing any conservatorship petition without 30 days' notice, requiring independent psychiatric evaluation before any competency hearing, freezing any changes to Thompson Medical Supply ownership. 2. Demand for full financial audit of Thompson Medical Supply accounts, all transactions from January 2021 to present, to be conducted by independent forensic accountant. 3. Petition to exhume David's body for independent toxicology examination to test for thallium poisoning. Results to be sealed pending investigation. How long will this take? I asked. The protective order? I can get an emergency hearing tomorrow. The audit will take 2 to 3 weeks. The exhumation? That's harder. We'll need to convince a judge there's probable cause. I have David's journal, his private lab results showing thallium in his vitamins, Jacob's investigation. Will that be enough? Catherine nodded slowly. It might be, but Grace, once we file this petition, they'll know we're onto them. They'll either accelerate their plan or destroy evidence. Good, I said. I want them scared. I want them desperate, because desperate people make mistakes. What's your end game here? I pulled out my phone and showed Catherine a calendar. Thanksgiving is December 26th this year, 4 weeks from now. I'm going to invite everyone to my house for dinner. Everyone? Brandon, Rachel, William, Dr. Hughes, Theodore Grant, all of them, together, 1 room. That's insane. That's justice. We'll wire my entire house, audio, video, completely legal since it's my property. We'll get them talking, get them arguing, get them to turn on each other. And when we have enough, I smiled. Then we call the FBI. Why the FBI instead of Portland PD? Because this crosses state lines. Rachel's previous murders were in Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada. Wire fraud involving Brandon's cryptocurrency scheme. Williams' shell companies in Delaware, the Caymans, Singapore. This is federal jurisdiction. Catherine stared at me. You've been planning this. I had a good teacher. David spent 18 months investigating these people before he died. He left me a roadmap. Now I'm following it. And if they don't all come to Thanksgiving dinner? They will, because by then they'll be terrified. The protective order will block their conservatorship plan. The financial audit will be closing in on Brandon's embezzlement. The exhumation will threaten to expose the poisoning. They'll need to regroup, to coordinate their story. and I'm going to offer them exactly what they want. A chance to talk me out of pursuing this. A chance to make peace. Catherine laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. You're going to play the helpless old woman again. Exactly. I'll call Brandon, crying, saying I'm scared of legal battles, that I just want family around me for the holidays. I'll say I'm willing to talk about their concerns if we can all just sit down like adults. They'll think they're walking into an intervention where they can manipulate me into signing everything over. And instead they're walking into a trap, with federal agents listening to every word. The next 3 weeks moved like dominoes falling. November 26th, Catherine filed the emergency protective order. Judge Sarah Martinez granted it within 6 hours. Theodore Grant was blocked from filing conservatorship until December 26th at the earliest, and only after Grace underwent independent evaluation. November 27th, Brandon called me, furious. Mom, what the hell? You filed a court order against our lawyer? I played my part, crying, confused. Brandon, I got scared. These legal papers, I didn't understand them. A friend said I should protect myself. Did I do something wrong? Silence. Then, Mom, we're just trying to help you. I know, sweetheart, I know. I'm sorry. I'm just so confused about everything. December 2nd, the forensic accountant, hired by Catherine, began auditing Thompson Medical Supply. She found $1,947,832.19 embezzled by Brandon, $340,000 in unauthorized consulting fees paid to William Foster Enterprises, $89,500 in medical consultation fees paid to Dr. Patricia Hughes**. Total theft, $2,377,332.19. December 4th, Judge Martinez approved the exhumation petition. David's body was exhumed on December 6th. Independent toxicologist Dr. Sarah Chen conducted analysis. December 9th, Dr. Chen's report came back. Thallium sulfate detected in bone marrow, 47 parts per million. Lethal level, 15 plus parts per million. Thallium in hair sample, 134 parts per million. Pattern consistent with chronic poisoning over 6 to 9 months. Official cause of death, changed from cardiac arrest to homicide by poisoning. December 10, I received a panicked call from Dr. Patricia Hughes. Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk, please. I need to explain something. Come to my house tomorrow, 2 p.m. She arrived looking destroyed, dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking. Grace, I'm so sorry. I never wanted... William forced me. He paid my gambling debts. He owned me. And when he told me to prescribe those vitamins, I thought they were just placebos. I swear I didn't know about the poison until it was too late. I recorded everything. Why are you telling me this now? Because they're going to blame me for everything. I heard Theodore talking to William. They're going to say I was the only one involved, that I was a rogue doctor acting alone. They're going to let me take the fall while they walk away. Will you testify against them? She looked up, tears streaming. If you can protect me. If you can get me immunity. Yes. I'll tell you everything. December 15th. Jacob Riley presented me with his final surveillance report. 347 hours of recorded conversations between Brandon, Rachel, William, and Theodore bank records showing money transfers. Emails discussing removing obstacles and timeline for succession. Video of William entering my house on April 26, 2024, 2 days before David died. December 18th. I made the call to FBI Special Agent Michelle Torres, White Collar Crimes Division. Agent Torres, my name is Grace Thompson. I'm calling to report a murder, conspiracy to commit murder, elder financial abuse, wire fraud, and interstate crimes related to serial killings. And I have evidence. December 26, 2024, Thanksgiving Day, at 9 a.m., I stood in my kitchen preparing the meal. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. The same meal I'd made for 40 years. The same meal David had loved. But this year, everything was different. Jacob and his team had spent the previous night wiring my house. Cameras hidden in the chandelier above the dining table, the bookshelf in the living room, the smoke detector in the hallway, the decorative clock on the mantel, microphones in, the floral centerpiece, the overhead light fixture, The air vents, my watch, backup recording. Catherine sat in my home office with FBI Special Agent Michelle Torres and Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park. They would monitor everything in real time. If things went wrong, they'd intervene immediately. At 5 p.m., the guests began arriving. 5:15 p.m., Brandon and Rachel. They came together, Brandon carrying wine, Rachel carrying flowers. Brandon hugged me. He smelled like the cologne David used to wear. He'd started wearing it after his father died. "Mom, the house smells amazing." Rachel kissed my cheek. Cold lips. "Grace, thank you for doing this. We've all been so worried about you." "I've been worried too," I said softly. "About a lot of things." 5:30 p.m. William Foster. He arrived in a black Mercedes, wearing a cashmere coat. He brought white orchids, my favorite flower. David used to bring me orchids. "Grace," he took my hands. "You look beautiful." "Thank you for coming, William." I wouldn't miss it. His eyes searched mine, looking for signs that I suspected. I showed him nothing. 5:45 p.m. Dr. Patricia Hughes. She came alone, looking ill. She'd lost weight. Her hands trembled when she gave me a bottle of wine. "Grace, thank you for inviting me." "Of course, Patricia. You were David's doctor. You're part of the family." She flinched at that. 6 p.m. Theodore Grant. The lawyer arrived last, looking uncomfortable. He was 52 years old, silver-haired, expensive suit. He shook my hand formally. "Mrs. Thompson, I appreciate the invitation." "Mr. Grant, please. It's Thanksgiving. We're all family here." 6:30 p.m. Dinner begins. We sat around the dining table, the same table where David and I had hosted hundreds of meals, birthday dinners, holiday celebrations, normal, happy times. This was not a happy time. I sat at the head of the table, David's seat. To my right, Brandon and Rachel. To my left, William and Dr. Hughes. Theodore sat at the far end. "Before we eat," I said, "I'd like to say grace." I bowed my head. "Lord, thank you for this food. Thank you for bringing us together. And thank you for the truth, whatever form it takes. Amen." I heard Rachel's breath catch. We ate in tense silence for 10 minutes. Then William spoke. "Grace, I've been thinking about what you said, about the house being too much for you to manage alone. There are some excellent retirement communities in Portland, very upscale. I'd be happy to—" "I'm not selling my house, William." Silence. "Of course not," he said smoothly. "I just meant, I know what you meant." I set down my fork. "I know what all of you meant. The conservatorship petition, the assisted living suggestions, the concerns about my declining mental state." Brandon went pale. "Mom, we're just trying to help." "Are you?" I pulled a folder from beneath my chair and placed it on the table. "Because this tells a different story." I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements. $1,947,832.19. That's how much you stole from Thompson Medical Supply over 3 years, Brandon. 387 separate transfers. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Brandon's face crumbled. Dad knew? Dad knew everything. I pulled out another document, including the loan from William, $1.2 million at 18% interest, with a clause giving William 45% equity in the company if you defaulted. You're 3 months behind on payments, Brandon, which means William now owns almost half of my company. William's expression didn't change, but his eyes went hard. Rachel stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. Grace, you're clearly unwell. Sit down, Rebecca. She froze. What did you call me? Rebecca Marie Cole, born 1989, Phoenix, Arizona, married to Thomas Reed, 2008 to 2009. He died in a convenient car accident. Then Mark Winters, 2011 to 2013, hiking accident. Then Stephen Hartley, 2015 to 2017, house fire. $1.5 million in life insurance across 3 dead husbands. And now Brandon, with a $2 million policy you took out in 2020. The color drained from Rachel's face. Brandon turned to her, horror dawning. Rachel, is this true? Of course it's not true. She's insane. I have the police reports. I pulled them out. All 3 deaths, all 3 insurance payouts, all 3 ruled accidental. But in every case, there were suspicious circumstances that were never fully investigated. Dr. Hughes started crying. Soft, broken sobs. Theodore Grant stood. Mrs. Thompson, this is highly inappropriate. I'm going to have to ask you to— Sit down, Mr. Grant. I have evidence of your involvement, too. Emails discussing my conservatorship petition. Communications with William about removing obstacles. You're an accessory to elder abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud. He sat down slowly, face ashen. I turned to William. And you, the architect of all of this. 10 years. That's how long you've been planning this. Finding Rachel. Engineering Brandon's financial collapse. Controlling Dr. Hughes. Poisoning my husband. You can't prove any of this, William said calmly, but his hand was shaking. Can't I? I pulled out the final document. David's journal. This is my husband's handwriting. His investigation. Every detail of what you did to him. And this, I placed the toxicology report on the table, is proof that David was murdered. Thallium sulfate poisoning. Chronic exposure over 9 months. Climax number 1. Brandon's breakdown. Brandon stood up so fast his chair fell over. You poisoned Dad? His voice was anguished, looking at William. You killed him? Brandon, sit down, William started. I helped you, Brandon was screaming now, tears pouring down his face. I told you about Dad's health. I gave you his schedule. I thought you were helping me pay off debts. I didn't know. I never thought. He turned to me, falling to his knees beside my chair. Mom, I swear I didn't know they were going to kill him. I thought William was just going to force Dad into early retirement, buy him out of the company. I never wanted Dad dead. I loved Dad. Then why did you help them? My voice broke. Because I was drowning, he sobbed. I lost everything in crypto, almost $1 million. Rachel said she could help. William said he'd save me. And then I was in too deep. I owed too much money. And Rachel? She said if I didn't cooperate, she'd make sure I went to prison for embezzlement. He looked at Rachel, betrayal in his eyes. You were going to kill me too, weren't you? The life insurance. You were going to make it look like an accident, just like your other husbands. Rachel said nothing. Her face was a mask. When did you know Dad was being poisoned? I asked Brandon quietly. February, 2 months before he died. I saw Dr. Hughes meeting with William at a restaurant. I followed them. I heard them talking about dosage and timeline. I went home and I vomited for an hour, but I didn't say anything, because I was a coward. He buried his face in his hands. You could have saved him, I said. I know. His voice was muffled, destroyed. I know, Mom, and I'll never forgive myself. Never. Dr. Hughes stood up, trembling. I can't do this anymore. Grace, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. William forced me. He controlled me. He— Shut up, Patricia, William snapped. No! She turned to face him. You don't own me anymore. You want to know the truth, Grace? William came to my house on April 26, 2024, 2 days before David died. He gave me a syringe. Told me to add it to David's IV if he ended up in the hospital. Said it was potassium chloride. Would cause instant cardiac arrest, untraceable. I refused. I told him I was done. And he said— She started crying harder. He said if I didn't do it, he'd kill my daughter. He knew where she lived, where she worked. He threatened my child. You're insane, William said coldly. No one is going to believe. The office door opened. FBI Special Agent Michelle Torres stepped out, flanked by 2 federal agents. William Charles Foster, she said, holding up her badge. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, murder for hire, wire fraud, and racketeering. Rachel Cunningham, also known as Rebecca Cole, you're under arrest for 3 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Dr. Patricia Hughes, Theodore Grant, Brandon Thompson, you're all under arrest as accessories. The room exploded. Rachel lunged for the door. One of the agents caught her. Theodore started shouting about lawyers. Dr. Hughes collapsed, sobbing. Brandon just sat on the floor, broken. William looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. You recorded all of this, he said quietly. Every word, audio and video, all of you confessing, all of it admissible in federal court. You clever bitch. No, William, I'm just a woman who loved her husband, and you underestimated me. As the agents handcuffed him, William spoke one last time. I loved you, Grace. For 43 years, I loved you. Everything I did. You never loved me. You loved the idea of winning. And William? I stepped closer. You lost. They took him away. All of them. And I stood alone in my dining room, surrounded by cold Thanksgiving dinner and empty chairs. Outside, police lights flashed red and blue against my windows. Inside, I picked up the photograph of David that sat on the mantel. It's done, I whispered. It's over. You can rest now. The house was silent after they left. I stood in my dining room at 8:47 p.m. on Thanksgiving night, surrounded by half-eaten food and empty chairs. The turkey I'd spent all morning preparing sat cold on the table. The mashed potatoes had congealed. The cranberry sauce had formed a skin. Everything looked wrong. Everything felt wrong. I'd won. The people who killed my husband were in handcuffs, being processed at the Federal Detention Center downtown. FBI agents had recorded every word. The evidence was overwhelming. So why did I feel so hollow? Catherine found me there an hour later, still standing, still staring at David's empty chair. Grace, she put her arm around me. Come sit down. I can't. My voice sounded strange, distant. If I sit down, if I stop moving, I'll fall apart. Then fall apart, you've earned it. I finally looked at her. I sent my son to prison, Catherine. My own child. Brandon sent himself to prison. You just made sure he couldn't hurt anyone else. He's 39 years old. By the time he gets out, if he gets out, he'll be... I couldn't finish. Catherine guided me to the couch. We sat together in this dark living room, and for the first time in 8 months, since the day David died, I let myself truly cry. Not the quiet tears I'd shed reading his journal, not the controlled grief I'd shown at his funeral. This was something else. This was the sound of a woman who'd lost everything and everyone she'd loved. Catherine held me until I had no tears left. What happens now? I asked finally. Now, the FBI builds their case, the U.S. attorney prosecutes, and you survive. 3 days after Thanksgiving, Federal Detention Center, Agent Torres called me on November 29th. Mrs. Thompson, we need you to come in. Brandon is asking to see you. My first instinct was to say no, but Catherine convinced me. He's cooperating fully, she said. And Grace, he's your son. Whatever he's done, he's still your son. The Federal Detention Center was a gray concrete building on Southwest Macadam Avenue. They led me through metal detectors, pat-downs, security checkpoints, then into a small room with a table and 2 chairs. Brandon was already there. He looked destroyed. Orange jumpsuit, unshaven, eyes red and swollen. When I walked in, he started crying immediately. Mom, I'm so sorry, Stop. I sat down across from him, my hands folded on the table. Just tell me the truth. All of it. From the beginning. He did. For 90 minutes, Brandon told me everything. The cryptocurrency investments that went bad. The loan sharks threatening him. William appearing like a savior with money and promises. Rachel's manipulation. How she'd isolated him from friends, from David, from me. How she'd convinced him that stealing from the company was temporarily borrowing and that he'd pay it all back. When did you know Dad was being poisoned? I asked. February 14th, Valentine's Day. I came to the house to drop off a gift for you. I saw Dr. Hughes leaving. She looked guilty, scared. I followed her. She met William at a restaurant on Hawthorne. I sat in a booth nearby and I heard them. His voice broke. William said, "He's lasting longer than expected. Increase the dosage." And Dr. Hughes said, "Any more and it'll be obvious." And William said, "We have 2 months. Make it work." Brandon put his head in his hands. I went home and I vomited until there was nothing left. Then I called Rachel. I told her what I'd heard. And she said, he looked up at me, devastated. She said, "Good. That means it's almost over. Once David's gone, we'll control everything. Your mother will be easy." And you said nothing. I was terrified. Of William, of Rachel, of going to prison for embezzlement. So I chose to save myself, and I let Dad die. We sat in silence. "Do you know what Dad's last words to me were?" I said quietly. "The morning he died, before the ambulance came, he grabbed my hand and said, 'Tell Brandon I forgive him. Tell him to be brave.'" He knew, Brandon. He knew you were involved, and he forgave you anyway. Brandon sobbed. I don't deserve forgiveness. No, I agreed. You don't, but your father gave it to you anyway. That's what love is. Mom, I'll testify against all of them. William, Rachel, Theodore, Dr. Hughes. I'll tell the FBI everything. Every meeting, every conversation, every crime. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. That won't bring David back. I know, but it's all I have left. I stood to leave. Then I turned back. Brandon, do you remember when you were 7 years old? You broke Mrs. Patterson's window playing baseball. You were so scared. And Dad took you by the hand, walked you to her door, and made you confess and apologize. Do you remember what he said to you afterward? Brandon nodded, tears streaming. He said, being brave isn't about never being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Yes, so be brave now. Tell the truth. Face the consequences. That's the only way forward. I left him there, sobbing in an orange jumpsuit, and I didn't look back. 6 months later, May 2025, the trial was held in the United States District Court for the District of Oregon, Judge Cristina Rodriguez presiding. It lasted 8 weeks. I attended every single day. The prosecution was led by Assistant U.S. Attorney David Park, a Korean-American man in his 40s with a reputation for winning impossible cases. He was meticulous, relentless, and brilliant. The defense hired the best lawyers money could buy. William's attorney was Marcus Chen from Seattle, $850 per hour. Rachel's was Jennifer Walsh from San Francisco, $920 per hour. It didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Week 1 to 2, the prosecution's case. David Park presented David's journal, authenticated by handwriting experts. The audio recording from David's USB drive toxicology reports showing thallium poisoning bank records proving Brandon's embezzlement. $1,947,832. 19 * wire transfers linking William to shell companies. * surveillance footage of William entering my house, April 26, 2024 *. The Thanksgiving dinner recordings. All 5 confessions. Week 3. Brandon's testimony. Brandon took the stand wearing a gray suit. He looked 20 years older than his 39 years. For 3 days he testified about everything. The loan from William, Rachel's manipulation, overhearing the poisoning plan, his cowardice in saying nothing. The defense attorneys tried to destroy him on cross-examination. Mr. Thompson, isn't it true you're testifying to reduce your own sentence? Yes. And you've admitted to embezzling nearly $2 million from your father's company? Yes. So why should this jury believe anything you say? Brandon looked directly at the jury. Because I'm already going to prison. I've accepted that. I'm testifying because my father deserves justice, and because if I stay silent again, I'm no better than the people who killed him. It was the first true thing I'd heard him say in years. Week 4, Dr. Patricia Hughes's testimony. Dr. Hughes entered a plea bargain, full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. She testified about William paying her gambling debts, $227,450 in October 2008, being activated in January 2023 to prescribe poisoned vitamins, the pharmacy that created the compounds, owned by William through a shell company, William's threat to kill her daughter if she refused. Her testimony destroyed William's defense. Week 5, Rachel's past. The prosecution brought in investigators from Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada. They presented evidence on Rachel's 3 previous husbands. Thomas Reed, 2008 to 2009. Car accident initially ruled mechanical failure. New analysis showed brake line was deliberately severed. Rebecca Cole collected $250,000 insurance payout. Disappeared 6 months later. Mark Winters, 2011 to 2013. Hiking fall at Rocky Mountain National Park. New examination of his climbing harness showed deliberate fraying. Rebecca collected $500. 000 *. Changed her name to Vivian Blackwood. Stephen Hartley, 2015 to 2017. House. Fire ruled accidental. Faulty wiring. Fire investigator found traces of accelerant never previously tested for *. Rebecca collected $750,000 *. Changed her name to Rachel Cunningham. The jury watched in horror as prosecutors laid out Rachel's 15-year murder spree. Week 6. William's defense and collapse. William's attorney tried to argue that the Thanksgiving recording was inadmissible, that William's confession was coerced, that he was being framed by a vengeful widow. Then the prosecution played the recording from Waterfront Park, where William confessed everything to me, detailing his 10-year plan. William's lawyer objected. That recording was made without my client's knowledge or consent. Oregon is a two-party consent state. Judge Rodriguez ruled. The recording itself is inadmissible in Oregon State Court. However, this is federal court, and Mrs. Thompson testified under oath about what Mr. Foster said to her. The recording simply corroborates her testimony. I'll allow it. It was over. Week 7. Closing arguments. David Park stood before the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, David Thompson was murdered by people he trusted. His best friend, his family doctor, the woman who married his son, and his own child turned a blind eye while it happened. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated, systematic, evil. William Foster spent 10 years destroying a family because of jealousy. Rachel Cunningham murdered 4 men for money. Dr. Hughes poisoned her patient. Brandon Thompson chose money over his father's life. They all believed they'd get away with it. They believed Grace Thompson, a 62-year-old immigrant widow, was too weak to stop them. They were wrong. Week 8. Verdict. The jury deliberated for 4 days. On May 23, 2025, they returned with verdicts. William Charles Foster. Count 1. First-degree murder. David Thompson. Guilty. Count 2. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Count 3. Wire fraud. Guilty. Count 4. Racketeering. Guilty. Count 5. Elder financial abuse. Guilty. Rachel Cunningham, Rebecca Cole. Count 1 to 4. First-degree murder. Thomas Reed, Mark Winters, Stephen Hartley, David Thompson. Guilty on all counts. Count 5. Insurance fraud. Guilty. Count 6. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Dr. Patricia Hughes. Count 1. Second-degree murder. Guilty. Count 2. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Reduced charges due to cooperation and coercion evidence. Theodore Grant. Count 1. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Guilty. Count 2. Obstruction of justice. Guilty. Brandon Michael Thompson. Count 1. Embezzlement. Guilty. Pled guilty. Count 2. Accessory to murder. Guilty. Pled guilty. Count 3. Conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse. Guilty. Pled guilty. Judge Rodriguez sentenced each defendant. William Foster, life in prison without possibility of parole, plus 25 years consecutive. He would die in prison. Rachel Cunningham, 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. She would never see freedom again. Dr. Patricia Hughes, 22 years in federal prison, reduced from possible life sentence due to cooperation. Theodore Grant, 12 years in federal prison. Brandon Thompson, 15 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after 10 years if he completes all court-ordered therapy and restitution requirements. As the sentences were read, I watched William's face. He showed nothing. No remorse, no fear, just cold, empty hatred. When they led him away in handcuffs, he turned back to look at me one final time. "I hope it was worth it, Grace," he said. "You destroyed your own son." "No, William," I said quietly. "You did that. All I did was tell the truth." 1 year later, 2 years to the day after David died, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. in my house on Hawthorne Drive, the house I'd lived in for 37 years, the house where David and I raised Brandon, the house where William had poisoned my husband, the house I'd decided to keep. After the trial, Catherine had urged me to sell it. "Too many bad memories, Grace. Start fresh somewhere else." But I realized something. William didn't get to take this house from me. He didn't get to take my memories, my home, the life David and I built. This house held 40 years of happiness, Christmases and birthdays and ordinary Tuesday evenings watching TV together. I wasn't going to let William's evil erase all that good. So I stayed. But I made changes. David's office, where I'd found the hidden safe, I converted into a library. A peaceful room filled with books, comfortable chairs, and photographs of David and me from happier times. No more secrets. Just light and memory. I sold Thompson Medical Supply, the company David built over 30 years. I couldn't run it alone, and Brandon wouldn't be out of prison for at least another decade. The sale brought $8.2 million after taxes and legal fees. I used the money to establish the David Michael Thompson Foundation for Elder Justice. The foundation provides legal aid for elderly victims of financial abuse, support groups for families dealing with elder exploitation, educational programs about recognizing financial manipulation, emergency housing for seniors removed from abusive situations. In our first year, we helped 127 families, recovered $4.3 million in stolen assets, prosecuted 19 cases of elder abuse. David would have been proud. I sat on my front porch with coffee, watching the sunrise over Lake Oswego. It was a ritual I'd started 6 months ago. Every morning, just me in the quiet and David's memory. A car pulled up, a silver Honda Accord. The driver's door opened and a little girl tumbled out, 10 years old, braids bouncing, backpack nearly as big as she was. Grandma, Olivia Thompson, Brandon's daughter. Good morning, sweetheart, I called. Olivia ran up the porch steps and hugged me. Behind her, her temporary foster mother, Lisa Chen, a kind woman in her 50s, waved from the driveway. See you at 4 o'clock, Grace. Thank you, Lisa. After Rachel's arrest, Olivia had been placed in emergency foster care. For 8 months, she'd lived with 3 different families while the courts decided her fate. I petitioned for custody. Brandon's ex-wife, Olivia's mother, had died of cancer in 2019. Rachel was in prison for life. Brandon was incarcerated. Olivia had no one. The court battle took 6 months. Rachel's defense attorneys argued I was too old to raise a child, that at 63 I couldn't provide proper care, that Olivia needed a traditional family. Catherine destroyed their arguments. On March 15, 2026, Judge Rodriguez granted me full custody. Mrs. Thompson, she said, you've demonstrated extraordinary courage, intelligence, and love. Olivia is fortunate to have you. Olivia moved in with me on March 20th. For the first time in 2 years, the house felt like a home again. I made Olivia her favorite, chocolate chip pancakes with strawberries. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast with David for 40 years. Grandma, Olivia said carefully, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think Daddy is a bad person? I set down my coffee. This was the conversation I'd been dreading and preparing for. Sweetheart, your daddy made very bad choices. He hurt people. He hurt me. He hurt your grandfather. And those choices have consequences. That's why he's in prison. But does that make him completely bad? No. People are more complicated than that. Do you hate him? No. I'm angry at him. I'm disappointed. I'm heartbroken by what he did. But I don't hate him. He's still my son, and he's still your father. Does he hate me? For living with you instead of waiting for him? My heart broke. Oh, honey, no. Your dad loves you more than anything. He told me that when I visited him last month. He said he's glad you're with me, where you're safe and loved. He said he wants you to be happy, even if he can't be here. I'd been visiting Brandon once a month at the federal prison in Sheridan. Not because I'd forgiven him, I wasn't sure I ever could, but because he was trying, really trying. He'd completed 400 hours of therapy, earned his GED, he'd dropped out of college, started teaching other inmates basic business skills, written letters to every person he'd hurt, taking full responsibility. He'd never asked me to forgive him. He'd only asked me to take care of Olivia, and I had. Can I write to Daddy? Olivia asked. Of course. We can write him together after school today if you want. She smiled, a shy, hesitant smile. Then she ate another pancake. 3 days a week, I worked at the foundation office in downtown Portland. Catherine served as our legal director, pro bono. Jacob Riley worked as our investigator. We'd hired a staff of 12, social workers, attorneys, case managers. Today, I met with a woman named Margaret Harrison. She was 68 years old, white, trembling. Mrs. Thompson, my daughter, she's taken everything. My house, my savings, my late husband's pension. She said she was managing my finances, but I just found out she's stolen over $340,000. And now she's trying to have me declared incompetent so I can't report her. I listened to her story. I heard the shame in her voice, the disbelief that her own child could do this. I knew exactly how she felt. Margaret, I said gently, you're not alone, and you're not helpless. We're going to help you. We have attorneys who specialize in this. We'll get your money back. We'll make sure your daughter faces consequences, and we'll make sure you're protected." She cried with relief. By the end of the day, we'd taken on her case, filed emergency protective orders, and begun asset recovery proceedings. This was my purpose now, helping people like Margaret, people like me. David would have approved. I stood in front of David's grave. The headstone was simple. David Michael Thompson, March 15, 1959 to April 28, 2024. Beloved husband, father, friend. He loved well and was well loved. I'd brought white orchids, his favorite. I placed them gently at the base of the stone. "Hi, my love," I said softly. It's been 2 years. The cemetery was quiet, just birds singing and wind rustling through the trees. I did it. Everything you asked me to do. I found the journal. I gathered the evidence. I brought them all to justice. William got life in prison. Rachel, too. Dr. Hughes got 22 years. Theodore got 12. And Brandon, my voice caught. Brandon got 15 years. He'll be 49 when he gets out. If he gets out. I sat down on the grass beside the grave, not caring that it would stain my dress. I have custody of Olivia now. She's living with me. She's beautiful, David. So smart. She looks like Brandon did when he was little, before everything went wrong. She asks about you. I tell her stories, about how you used to make terrible jokes at dinner, about how you couldn't carry a tune but sang anyway, about how you loved her more than anything. Tears slip down my cheeks. I miss you every single day. I still reach for your hand in the middle of the night. I still pour 2 cups of coffee in the morning. I still turn to tell you something funny and you're not there. A robin landed on the headstone, tilted its head at me. But I'm okay. I'm surviving. More than surviving. I'm living. I'm running the foundation. I'm raising Olivia. I'm helping other people who've been hurt the way we were hurt. And David, I'm not angry anymore. That was the truth I'd discovered over the past year. I was so angry at William, at Rachel, at Brandon, at you for dying and leaving me alone, at myself for not seeing it sooner. The anger was eating me alive. But then I realized William wanted me to be angry. He wanted me to be bitter and broken, and I refused to give him that. I reached out and touched the cold marble of the headstone. So instead, I chose to honor you, to live the way you lived, with kindness, with integrity, with love. You forgave Brandon even when he didn't deserve it. You protected me even when you were dying. You taught me that love is stronger than hate. The robin flew away. I'm going to be okay, David. We're going to be okay. Olivia and me. We're going to have a good life. Not the life we planned, but a good life anyway. And every day I'm going to make you proud. I stood up, brushed off my dress. I love you. I will always love you. Thank you for 40 years. Thank you for the evidence. Thank you for believing I was strong enough to finish what you started. I kissed my fingers and pressed them to his name carved in stone. Then I walked back to my car, where Olivia was waiting with Lisa. "Ready to go, Grandma?" Olivia asked. "Yes, sweetheart. Let's go home." Epilogue. 1 year later, Thompson Foundation Annual Gala. I stood on the stage at the Sentinel Hotel in downtown Portland, looking out at 200 people who'd come to support the David Michael Thompson Foundation for elder justice. In 2 years, we'd helped 347 families, recovered $12.4 million in stolen assets, trained 89 attorneys in elder law, opened 3 satellite offices across Oregon. 2 years ago, I said into the microphone, I was a 62-year-old widow who'd just lost her husband. People assumed I was weak, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. They were wrong. The audience laughed. I learned something important. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't a liability. And underestimating someone because they're older or female or an immigrant, that's the mistake my husband's killers made. And it's the mistake that brought them to justice. Applause. This foundation exists because my husband, David Thompson, believed in documentation, truth, and justice. He spent the last 18 months of his life gathering evidence to protect me. He left me weapons, his journal, his investigation, his love. And I used those weapons not for revenge, but for justice. I looked out at the crowd. Catherine was there, smiling. Jacob Riley, Dr. Chen, the toxicologist, Agent Torres from the FBI, and in the front row, Olivia, now 11 years old, wearing a blue dress, beaming with pride. If you're facing financial abuse, elder exploitation, or manipulation by family members, please know you're not alone. You're not helpless, and you're not too old to fight back. Document everything. Tell someone. Ask for help. And never ever let anyone make you believe you're too weak to protect yourself. Standing ovation. After the gala, Olivia and I walked to the car together. Grandma, that was amazing. You made like 50 people cry. Good tears, I hope. The best tears. She took my hand. Grandpa would be really proud of you. I hope so, sweetheart. We drove home through the Portland night. The city lights reflected on the Willamette River. The streets were alive with people living normal lives, going to dinner, walking dogs, laughing with friends. Normal, beautiful, ordinary. When we got home, I tucked Olivia into bed. She was in the guest room, which we'd redecorated together with purple walls and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Grandma, she said sleepily, thank you for not giving up. On me, on Daddy, on everything. Oh, honey, I could never give up on you. Even though your father made terrible choices. But you are not your father's choices. You are brilliant, kind, and loved, and you have your whole life ahead of you to be whoever you want to be. She smiled and closed her eyes. I went downstairs to the library, David's old office, now transformed. I sat in my favorite chair and looked at the photographs on the wall. David and me on our wedding day, June 15th, 1983. David holding baby Brandon, 1985. David and me at Crater Lake, 2003. David's last birthday, March 15th, 2024, 1 month before he died. So many memories. So much love. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Mom, I heard about the gala. Olivia sent me pictures. I'm so proud of what you've built. I'm so sorry I can't be there to help. I love you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm trying every day to become someone who might. Give Olivia a hug from me. Love, Brandon. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. I know you're trying. Keep trying. That's all any of us can do. We love you. I didn't say I forgive you, because I wasn't sure I did. Maybe I never would. But I was learning that you don't have to forgive someone to hope they become better. You don't have to forget the hurt to move forward. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a future anyway. I learned something at 64 years old that I wish I'd known at 24. The people who hurt you most are often the people you trust most. Not because trust is bad, but because trust is powerful. And powerful things can be weaponized. William Foster spent 43 years pretending to be our friend while planning our destruction. Rachel spent 15 years killing men who loved her. Brandon chose money over family. Dr. Hughes chose her career over her oath. They all believed they'd get away with it, because they believed I was weak. But here's what they didn't understand. Strength isn't always loud. It isn't always obvious. Sometimes strength looks like a 62-year-old immigrant widow sitting in her dead husband's office, reading his journal, and deciding to fight. Sometimes strength is choosing justice over revenge. Sometimes strength is raising your grandchild even when your son is in prison. Sometimes strength is getting up every morning and choosing to live, really live, even when grief tries to pull you under. David gave me 40 years of love. William tried to poison that with his hatred. But love is stronger than hate. Always. Because hate consumes the hater. But love nourishes everyone it touches. I'm 64 years old now. I'm a widow. I'm a grandmother. I'm a survivor. I'm the founder of a foundation that's helped hundreds of families. I'm a woman who refused to be a victim. And every morning I wake up in the house David and I shared, pour my coffee, sit on my porch, and I'm grateful. Grateful for the time I had. Grateful for the fight I won. Grateful for the life I still have ahead of me. William Foster is in prison, dying alone with his hatred. Rachel Cunningham will never hurt another person. Dr. Hughes is facing her consequences. Brandon is trying to become someone better. And me? I'm free. Free from fear. Free from manipulation. Free to live the rest of my life on my terms. That's the greatest victory of all. Not revenge. Not even justice. Just freedom.